Former Governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi, has dumped the opposition People's Democratic Party. Obi announced his resignation in a letter addressed to the national chairman of the party. The former governor's decision to leave the PDP comes days before the presidential primary is scheduled to hold. Here is Peter Obi's campaign director general, Doyin Okupe, speaking why Obi is dumping the PDP.
According to what he said, even in his letter, the various developments within the PDP makes it virtually impossible for him to find full expression of his desire on the platform of the PDP. This is not to say that all hopes are lost. I can say on his behalf that Nigerians must not give up. We must never give up. Hope is on his way and help is coming.
Well, still on Peter Obi, Arise News correspondent Amaka Ude reflects on his campaign thus far, leading to his exit from the party.
Former governor of Anambra State and one of the top contenders for the presidential ticket of the main opposition People's Democratic Party has surprisingly dumped the party. Citing recent developments within the PDP in his letter to the party's ward chairman in Agulu Ward 2 of Anocha local government area of Anambra State, which was copied to the PDP national chairman, Iyoche Ayu, the leading presidential aspirant says he was withdrawing his participation from the party's primary election slated for this weekend due to his commitment to rescue Nigeria, which was no longer feasible in the PDP.
I know I can turn around this country and put it from consumption to production. And as I go around the country, seeing the innermost potentials of the country, I go out back, sleep every night thinking, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this.
Obi was one of the 15 PDP presidential aspirants cleared by the Senator David Mark-led presidential screening committee last month. He has enjoyed a massive youth following across the country, especially on social media, while pushing across new ideas to revolutionize Nigeria. He has, prior to quitting the PDP, been on the nationwide campaign tour to all states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, except Adamawa State. Peter Obi was previously a member of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, upon whose platform he became a two-term governor in Anambra State before defecting to the People's Democratic Party in 2014. During his earlier defection to PDP in 2014, Obi had said that the issue of joining a national party was not about happenings in Abga, but because of his need to be a competitor and not a spectator in national affairs. With his defection from the PDP, the political calculations have now changed in the main opposition party as aspirants do the final push to win delegates at Saturday's PDP presidential primary election in Abuja. Peter Obi is yet to name the new party that he is defecting to, but insiders on his campaign team say it will be made known in a matter of days. Amaka Ude, Arise News.
Dr. Abati, as you can imagine, everyone is, interested in this electoral process. Amaka said that it was a shocking exit. I guess it is, because he's a favorite, especially on social media. People were shocked. He was trending at #1 for hours. But I don't know. I guess the question is are Nigerians ready for a third force? Where is he going to at this point?
Well, one, you are absolutely correct that Mr. Peter Obi's exit from the People's Democratic Party came as a big surprise, came as something really very shocking, considering the fact that many of these aspirants have said at one point or the other, and I think including Mr. Peter Obi himself, that no matter what happens, they are loyal party men and they will stay within the party. Or some of them even went as far, like Wike, for example, as saying that they will support whoever emerges on the platform of the party. And then all of a sudden, you have Mr. Peter Obi, who has been one of the more outspoken, aspirants on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, delivering this shocker, saying he was withdrawing because of certain developments within the party, which Dr. Donyo Okupe, his campaign manager, also repeated. Now, what those developments within the party are, we do not know. So there have been many speculations. One speculation, perhaps, is that he may have seen that he would not be able to match some of the other aspirants naira for naira in terms of what happens during the, the presidential convention of the party. And then we'll have decided that, okay, perhaps it's better to just withdraw. The second story that has been put out there is that Mr. Peter Obi will be considering joining a third force and running on the platform of another party. And in the last 24 hours, he has been associated with the NNPP, the party led by Senator Rabiu Kwankwanso from Kano State. In fact, in some of the stories on social media, the two of them were pictured together. I've even seen some flyers indicating that the two of them will run on the platform of the NNPP. But Mr. Peter Obi and his managers and spokespersons have not confirmed anything in this regard. So that still remains within the realm of speculation. It has also been said that maybe he will be heading towards the Labour Party or towards the Social Democratic Party, or we could have a situation whereby 3 or more political parties could come together and form a coalition, and it could emerge on that platform. Another speculation, of course, is that, perhaps maybe he has some other plans that nobody knows yet. But he, of course, will know what the truth is. Beyond that statement that he has issued, people are only left to mere speculations. But he made a point in that his letter, which must be noted. He says he's still committed to the project to rescue Nigeria. In other words, he's saying that he stands by all of those things that he's been saying about how to rescue Nigeria, and that it may well be that there are other routes, there are other ways of doing so. Well, what those other options available to him are, he will be in the best position to explain those options. But clearly, it's only time that will reveal all of this. However, it will seem that his exit from the People's Democratic Party, many will consider it a major minus for the party. Because if indeed, as he has said in one instance, that whoever emerges, his supporters, he will still work for the party. What it means is that those supporters that he has been able to build up, critically among the middle class, critically among young people, is very popular with Nigerian youths, particularly youths from the southern part. Okay, and then of course he has his own base in the southeastern part of the country. Now, if he has left the party, many of those his supporters, many of those delegates who may have supported the PDP even in the general election, that he himself could have helped to mobilize to support whoever eventually emerges in the PDP primaries, that opportunity may have been lost. Now, add to this the fact that he's not the only person who withdrew from the presidential race, but he's the most prominent person who decided to even leave the party completely. If you look at the PDP primaries, in many parts of the country, you had persons withdrawing because they had issues with the delegates list, because they had issues with court cases, because they had issues with the imposition of candidates by governors and all of that. So this may be, some of the developments that he may be alluding to, and then he will just decide, okay, it's better to just stay away from this. But definitely, many will remember him so far, the efforts that he has made, as somebody who showed great knowledge, who showed commitment, and who spoke truth to power in many regards about the need for us to salvage Nigeria. And, I hope his voice will not be lost, in that conversation, and that he will still continue, to make his views known and felt within the general political space. But again, Well, whatever happens, we'll just keep watching, because I don't think this amounts to a resignation from politics. He didn't say he has resigned from politics. He has only left the PDP. He was not originally a member of the PDP. When he was governor in Anambra State, he became governor for 2 terms on the platform of ABGA. It was only in 2014, as that report indicated, that he joined the PDP. But because of the kind of person he is, his passion, his commitment, he rose to be one of the major prominent persons within the PDP. So we'll keep watching. Maybe he will emerge as a presidential candidate on the platform of another political party, or he may well still show up a second time as a running mate to any other, presidential candidate in any other political party.
So just some quick insight. I reached out to Peter Obi this morning, and he confirmed that there's no talk yet with NNPP.
Okay.
So the story is out there, because that story was trending over yesterday.
Yes.
In fact, NNPP, the political party, was trending, and I reached out and he said that he's still scouting for political parties to join, but not the NNPP. I just needed to put that out there. But definitely, this will put a lot of permutations out there. Some people said it's taking a wrong decision. Some people said it's taking a right decision. It's give people the chance for a fair voting chance, for all his supporters and the likes. Some people say, okay, they know he'll never get a seat, at the PDP. He'll never be on the ballot, and he needs to be on the ballot. But this has been a long time coming. But because of time, I wanted to expatiate, but I can't talk much on this. Peter Obi's leaving this political party of the PDP will be the first of many to come. We'll see a lot of surprises after the primary. We'll talk more, okay?
Yeah. Well, moving along. Winners have emerged as the People's Democratic Party conducts its governorship primaries across various states ahead of the general elections in 2023. Among the winners in Wednesday's primaries were Governor Makinde of Oyo State, who swept to victory in the contest held at the Lekan Salami Stadium. The incumbent polled a total of 1,040 votes from Oyo delegates to defeat his sole opponent, Mr. Hazim Bugularumi, who had only 2 votes, with 6 other votes recorded as void. Also declared winner was Governor Umaru Fintiri of Adamawa State, who is seeking to extend his tenure in office by another term. In neighboring Ogun State, Segun Showumi emerged as the winner of a parallel primary of the PDP. The former spokesman for the PDP presidential campaign polled 554 votes to defeat his fellow aspirant, Jimmy Lawal and Ladi Adebutu, who scored 30 and 15 votes, respectively. While in Enugu, former Commissioner for Finance in Enugu State, Peter Mbah, was also declared the winner. Other winners include the Speaker of the Benue State House of Assembly, Titus Uba, the Speaker of Delta State House of Assembly, Sheriff Obo Owori. In Rivers, the immediate past Accountant General of the state, Simini Alayi Fubara, emerged as the governorship candidate of the PDP after polling the highest number of votes in the primary. Mohamed Bade emerged as the PDP candidate in Gombe State. Governor Udom Emmanuel preferred successor Umo Eno won the PDP governorship primary in Akwa Ibom State. Mr. Eno, a former commissioner for lands and water resources in the state, scored 993 votes to clinch the party ticket for the 2023 governorship election. While in Kano State, son of the late Sani Abacha, Mohamed Abacha has emerged winner of the People's Democratic Party primary election. In Bauchi, Mr. Ibrahim Kashim, the immediate past secretary to the state government, emerged as the party's governorship flag bearer for the 2023 general election.
I mean, a lot to break down this morning. The numbers are coming out. We're beginning to see them. And, okay, let's start from withdrawals. I think, let me interact with the board over there. Withdrawals, there are cases of, discrepancies here and there. Inaya Barry did withdraw from Abia State. Ike Kwerimadu did withdraw. We all saw the case as regards zoning and the likes. I mean, we knew the body language in Enugu. He was supposed to be zoned to a certain district. He was from the western area, so he couldn't go as regards that, so he withdrew. I think there are possibilities he might continue with his race, or that might be the end of the road for him. But let me start out with Enugu State. Peter Mbah is a big stalwart, top oil and gas magnate, Pinnacle Energy. He's got a lot of financial power base in the race. He's got his money cut off for him in here. He's also served as commissioner and he's the one the incumbent Governor Ngwanyi wants, and you've seen it from the electoral process. He said yesterday at his acceptance speech I was going to consolidate the party and bring everybody together, and also saying that the governor of Enugu State, Ngwanyi, did win his own senatorial primaries too. So that talk about most governors, going back to the Senate, funny enough, it's happening again. So Governor Ngwanyi might just be going to the Senate if he finally wins the race. And when you look at it, too, Chimaroke and Namani also did win the race. Let me quickly go straight to another state. Let me go to Delta. Sheriff Oboveri. Sheriff has, been a politician of repute, a local politician. He's moved up the ranks. He's become the chairman. He's become the speaker of the Delta State House of Assembly. And he's quite done well for himself. But the race in Delta is the fight between the Ibori camp and the Okowa camp. The Ibori camp was pushing and gunning for former Commissioner of Finance in the state, and former Principal Secretary to President Yaradua, that's Chief David Adewie, but he got over 104, 105 votes. Then Sheriff got well over 500. So a lot of people are now saying that the Okowa camp has won ahead. But there are also stories making the rounds that, hey, probably Ibori and the Okowa camp had a deal. But some people are saying that's not true, that didn't happen. And that might open the door for a consolidation. Probably, maybe the Ibori camp might have to work with Ovioma Agege if he emerges. Delta politics is quite murky. Also gunning in the PDP to get that ticket was the incumbent Deputy Governor Otwaru, which he didn't even get. I think he got up to 5 or 6 votes. That's about... what's it called? I've talked about Enugu, I've talked about Delta. Gombe, Jibrin Bade, this is the second time coming for Jibrin Bade. He came runner-up in the last 2018 primaries on the platform of the APC. He switched to the PDP. Now he's finally got it. He's got a chance at it. He's on the ballot. Jibrin Bade, another big financial stalwart, former MD of SunTrust Bank. He's cut his teeth in the corporate sector. Has a lot going for him. Let's see how it's going to tip the balance of the race. If I can quickly see on other states there, let me quickly go to Lagos State. Yes, Olajide Adediran, popularly known as Jandon. That was another one that a lot of people were looking at. The Lagos for Lagos movement, when he started it, he broke out of the APC. He says he's got his own structure. He says he's got his groundwork, and it happens to be working for him now. Jandon, a newcomer to the PDP, has been able to take the ticket of the PDP. He did beat some incumbents like David Cole, Yvonne, and the likes. And a lot of people are saying he might just be the man to upset the apple cart. In this.
Very well. Dr. Abati, there are 2 states that were, trending. One was Ogun State, was a nice surprise. Segun Showunmi emerged the winner with 554 votes. I guess one of the reasons is because he beat that Adebutu family with deep pockets. You remember we were talking about everything all boils down to cash. Segun Showunmi was a former spokesman to the Atiku campaign in 2019. So it came as a nice surprise. Also was Kano State, Mohammed Abacha, correct? And, he is the son of the late ruler, Sani Abacha. So it came also as a surprise that he took that ticket.
Okay, I would like to talk more about trends rather than the individuals. Yes. Now, is the PDP stronger after these governorship primaries or not? Is it stronger 3 days to its presidential convention taking place this weekend? And what are the trends that we have seen in the governorship primaries that took place in the party in about 18 states? Now, what we have seen is that, one, very strong influence of incumbency. 2, the governors, right? The sitting governors, they remain powerful. It's either is their, anointed person that wins, or they themselves are returning, as in the case of Sheyi Makinde in Oyo State. Take Rivers. Fubara is a person that Wike anointed. So Wike had his way. Take Akwa Ibom. Pastor Umo Eno was chosen publicly by the governor. And that's the person that has been there. In Taraba State, Governor Darius Ishaku had anointed Lieutenant Colonel Kefas At the end of the day, it's Lieutenant Colonel Kefas that emerged. In Delta, Oborweri, who emerged, is also said to be the anointed successor by Governor Okowa, right? We can go on and on like that, and then you see that these governors have remained very influential. They've been able to have their will prevailing, despite the attempt by the National Assembly to prevent a situation whereby these governors will seize the space. Now, this has created problems in some of these PDP states. Take, for example, in Taraba State, the governor's convoy was stoned. Some of the aspirants withdrew because they didn't think that this was going to be a fair game. In Enugu State, Senator Ike Ekwuremadu, the only person on that list of 17 aspirants from Enugu West, withdrew. And it was the anointed candidate, aspirant of the governor from Enugu East that won. It wasn't only Senator Ekwuremadu that withdrew, some other people also withdrew. Even in Lagos, where Jandon, has been declared the winner, that's Dr. Lajide Adediran, but is popularly known as Jandon. 4 of the aspirants also withdrew because they said, they didn't think that it would be a fair process. So across most of the states, you have this situation because of the influence of governors. The second thing that I've also observed is that in some of the states, parallel elections were held. Yeah. In Ogun, show me that you refer to. He and some others organized their own parallel election at the Obasanjo Library. The President Obasanjo Presidential Library. They had their own there, so it's a faction. In the other, at the party secretariat, there was yet another faction in which Honorable Adebutu and Honorable Jimilawal participated. So which is the authentic one? It's the same kind of situation that you have in Ogun State, that you had also in Kano. Mohamed Abacha is a product of a faction.
Wali faction.
Okay? So you have these factions. 3 is that there was big issue over delegates list in Ogun, in Kano, in Taraba, and because of that, we're likely to see a lot of litigations. People are preparing to go to court to fight. In Adamawa, where Fintiri, won the majority, that's the incumbent governor, there are persons who have gone to court saying that they were deliberately excluded. Ambassador Jamil Waziri, for example, is protesting and is likely to go to court. So you find that in many of these states, there is, the ground has been created for further litigation. And then there was violence. I've mentioned the example of Taraba, where the governor's convoy was stoned. In Ogun State, there was gunshot, there was violence. In Niger State also, people were protesting. In Bauchi, to add to the earlier list, it was the governor's anointed person that also emerged. So every attempt to, circumscribe, reduce the overbearing influence of the governors has not worked. Now, where does all of this lead us? That the party, the PDP, may be going to its convention, presidential convention this weekend, as a divided party in many of these states. And a similar thing happened. A lot of disgruntlement in 2014, 2015. And the logical question to ask is that, look, has anybody learned any lessons from the past? The other day, Alhaji Muhammad Ayatuddin was saying that this election, 2023, is for the PDP to lose because the PDP, is a stronger position and all of that. With Mr. Peter Obi's exit, with the likely exit of other members, strong members of the party, and with the crisis emerging from this primaries process, I wouldn't be surprised if the people in the other compound, members of the All Progressives Congress, if they are already jubilating that the People's Democratic Party may have shot itself in the foot. They have their own problems, but if you look at it, at this moment, we don't know what will happen by next week. It will seem that the problems emerging in the PDP may be of a bigger size than the problems in the APC. So everything will now come down to strategy. Whoever emerges as the presidential flag bearer of the PDP this weekend will have a lot of work to do to be able to put up a very strong, robust challenge. So all those permutations, well, they are still up there in the air, but, these primaries may well be some of the most problematic processes that we have seen yet in the two major political parties in contemporary times.
Well said, Dr. Abati. Well, that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rotus Odiri and Michael Wilson give us updates on Africa and global business activities across the globe. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. At the ongoing African Development Bank annual meetings in Accra, Ghana, Day 3 focused on how to strategically use a healthy portion of the $650 billion in special drawings rights issued by the International Monetary Fund to boost development on the African continent. Arise business correspondent Rotus Odiri attended the seminar and sent in this report.
The third day of the African Development Bank annual meetings in Accra, Ghana, was headlined by a seminar on SDRs, Special Drawing Rights. Back on August 2nd of 2021, the International Monetary Fund's Board of Governors approved a general allocation of special drawing rights equivalent to $650 billion to boost global liquidity. The seminar, held by the AFDB, was focused on leveraging the SDRs to boost development on the African continent. Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, president of the African Development Bank, laid out his case.
The International Monetary Fund, under the leadership of my dear sister, Kristalina Georgieva, took the bold decision to issue the largest SDRs in its history at $650 billion. However, Africa received just $33 billion of the SDRs. The African Development Bank looks forward to working in partnership strategically with the IMF on the special drawing rights. Our goal is simple: use the SDRs to accelerate Africa's development. Africa can accelerate its development and cope with other challenges such as climate change, debt, insecurity, and the effects of the Russian war in Ukraine on their economies if we better leverage the special drawing rights of the International Monetary Fund. Africa needs to have a reallocation of $100 billion from developed economies as agreed by African heads of state and also as agreed at the Conference of Financing African Economies that was hosted by President Emmanuel Macron of France. The African Development Bank is in discussions with the IMF on approaches that address these issues. We at the African Development Bank believe that the SDRs to multilateral development bank rechanneling, such as the African Development Bank, will also strengthen the global financial architecture.
Following the remarks of Dr. Adesina, a high-level panel discussion was held on the subject of leveraging SDRs for Africa. It was moderated by Pierre Kalietou, the Managing Director of Global Financial Advisor, Lazard. It featured Ghana's Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, UK Minister for Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, Vicky Ford, Senegal's Minister of Economy, Planning and International Cooperation, Amadou Hott, Minister of Finance of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Nicolas Kazadi, and the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Trade and Development Bank, Admasu Tedesi. Following the panel discussion, we caught up with Hassatu Diop Nsele, the AFDB Vice President of Finance, and the Managing Director of Lazard, Pierre Kaliotu.
I think that the SDR is a powerful tool that needs to be used in order to fight climate change, to fight food insecurity, and also to combat poverty. It can make a huge difference. It has made a difference already, with the pandemic. It allowed, for example, low-income countries and middle-income countries to shore up their reserves and make very important expenditures. But we can further use the SDR. We can leverage them through multilateral development banks. The value proposition from MDBs to multilateral development banks is compelling because there is a multiplier effect. 1 billion of SDRs to MDBs is 3 to 4 billion out. 100 billion, the $100 billion that we're talking for developing economies, 100 billion to MDBs is 300 to 400 billion of resources available to the low-income countries and to the middle-income countries. So there is a solution that exists. We've been talking about the SDGs for a very, very long time. And we all know that Africa is not going to meet the SDG by the year 2030. What we need are resources, resources, and resources. We have the resources available via the SDR, and we have the MDBs, to make use of, let's say, idle reserves that are sitting in some of our developed in the developed countries. As the president of the African Development Bank said, SDRs, the special drawing rights, should in reality be supporting development revitalization. It cannot be ignored. We need to make a difference.
So, we had a very good panel at the African Development Bank annual meeting on the SDR rechanneling. The SDR, those are special drawing rights issued by the IMF to the international community. And for some reasons, the rich countries get much more, the disproportionate portion of those SDRs. So the key issue is how to reallocate those SDRs to countries that need the most. And in fact, if you do that through the African Development Bank or multilateral development banks in general, actually that can help deploy the money with some leverage. So 100 through the African Development Bank can lead to 400 on the ground. And the meeting was very positive. There was positive energy, and it is possible, in fact, that there is going to be an acceleration. So there will be action after many months of analysis. So that's really hope. And I think the president of the African Development Bank was very happy or even thrilled by this sort of feeling in this panel.
Time is of the essence, and the AFDB's next mission is to bring the IMF to the special drawing rights negotiating table for the benefit of the African continent. For Arise News, Rotus Odiri.
Well, Rotus Odiri joins us live from Ghana to give us more updates on the ongoing African Development Bank annual meetings. Good morning, Rotus. I hope you're enjoying Ghana.
Morning. Morning, Charlie.
Good morning, Oji. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Yes. Good morning, Charlie. Yes, I'm enjoying Ghana, although the taxes here are pretty high. Yeah, go ahead.
Charlie, how be? Real quickly, SDRs, what's the way forward?
The way forward is for the IMF to agree to allow a portion of those SDRs to be used for the development of African countries. Only about, of the 650 billion that was allocated, again, special drawing rights, only about Africa, the entire continent only got about 34 billion. And what that panel discussion was focused on was the fact that those SDRs, I think it was one of the panelists from Senegal said that the world would have to turn upside down to cause or push those SDRs to be used. That's why the developing nations. So use the money for the African nations. Leverage on the fact that multilateral institutions like the AFDB can use those funds for equity. They can use those funds to disburse much needed loans to a number of countries across the continent. They can use the money. The money is just sitting there. So there are some rules, like the European nations, they can't extend the funds outside of their borders, into Africa. So there's a lot of discussions that have to take place with respect to how they can take advantage of them. But the whole point of it is that it's a lot of money sitting there, and the AFDB is saying, let's have some of it. We can use this.
Well, but the big question is, what happens to the SDRs once they are allocated? Are there mechanisms in place for transparency and accountability and regular reporting, because this may well be the major challenge in African countries, given the, the character, the nature, the attitude of our policymakers and leaders. Was that part of the discussion?
Excellent. Yes, excellent question. Dr. Akim Medishina, he made the point that, hey, look, this is coming through an organization that has a strong corporate governance. Remember yesterday at his speech, or rather the day before, he had all the the board stand up and be applauded. So I remember, Doctor, you had a question about corporate governance. There's been a lot of focus on corporate governance at the AFDB. It's strong, high ratings, AAA credit rating. The fund, the AFDB, is well placed as an institution to be able to leverage these funds and use them in a transparent manner for all to see. So that, of course, was brought up.
Well,
thank you, Rotus.
Well, thank you very much, Rotus. We'll speak with you again, hopefully tomorrow. Well, moving on to more business update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. Bit of stocks in no man's land, really. I mean, that's the way to put it this morning. The US Fed came out with its minutes yesterday, and there was a bit of relief. The markets actually liked the fact that they're going to be fairly strict with interest rate rises. What they particularly like, I'll come on to this in a later bit, but they particularly like it's only going to be 50 basis points, say 0.5%, rather than the dreaded 0.75% rises that everybody was worried about. So basically, Asia Pacific stocks struggling for direction, and including Hong Kong and also South Korea. The Bank of Korea announced a 0.25%, 25 basis points raise in interest rates there for the second straight hike in a row. So let's turn our attention therefore to the United States. And the Fed was actually, it's sort of moving from what they describe as, and this is a bit technical, but they're moving from neutral into restrictive territory. Neutral really means that, just getting up to roughly about the target of 2% inflation, but it's well past that. So they're tightening. But of course, as we've often discussed on this program, the danger is that they tighten too much and it slows the whole economy down. Nasdaq 100 futures fall very, very slightly after Nvidia issued what's being described as light guidance. In other words, it's not making the sort of revenues that it particularly wanted. The Dow stock futures, as far as the Dow's concerned, are up very, very slightly. A big relief rally yesterday. Nvidia, as I said, going down very, very slightly, and also software stocks, Snowflake, tumbling nearly 14% after the company's guidance for operating margins came in much more narrower than expected. I think that what we're seeing here is the beginnings of an economy biting back on itself. And Twitter had a bit of a relief rally after the bell yesterday on Wall Street. It turns out that Elon Musk is saying that he's getting other investors in to help finance the bid for Twitter, which the market's actually quite liked, and it means that less of a margin call as far as he's concerned. So in other words, real money actually joining up with him. This, I think, is going to be a bit inflationary. Apple says it'll raise the pay for its corporate and retail employees. It's doing that because it feels it wants to keep the talent there. But it's a very, very tight labour market, as we know. And this is following moves from Google, Amazon and Microsoft, who've done similar kind of things as well. It's actually verging on stoking inflation, I would imagine, in a very tight labour market in the United States. So we're not going to get an enormous amount of how the European markets are going to deal with what's going on in the United States, because today is Ascension Day, and in many parts of Europe it's a holiday. Germany, France is closed basically as far as business is concerned, as is all of Scandinavia as well, and there's nothing really on the economic calendar to worry us about that. I'm going to turn my attention, your attention, our attention to the football pitch in Chelsea. The government in this country agreed that the sale to the American Todd Boehly. It's actually interesting, this, because what it's showing is, along with Man United, Liverpool, these clubs are now, the Americans are now looking at the Premier League as some of the clubs being slightly undervalued, and they're getting them getting themselves in. And we've got Stan Kroenke, of course, at Arsenal too. So in other words, there's a big population of American investors now getting into the Premier League, as I say, because what they're thinking is that these clubs are undervalued. The World Bank has offered its latest opinion on a possible world recession. David Malpass, the chief executive, the boss of the World Bank, he's saying that Russia's invasion of Ukraine could cause a global recession, and we're going to add to that by India saying that it has no immediate plans to allow private sales of wheat and so on. We do know that in Ukraine, for example, at the moment there's 20 million tons. It's going to be a bumper harvest, but there's nowhere for it to go at the moment. So that's the warning from there. What we're going to see in this country is very interesting. Later today, the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, is going to announce an emergency package. We think it totals about £10 billion, but not exactly sure. It's to help as far as the cost of living crisis is concerned. Exactly what it will be, to whom it will be applied, and how much it will be, we just do not know at the moment, but we will be getting ideas about that later on today, and I will be discussing that with you tomorrow, no doubt, about whether it's felt to be enough. It is going to be funded by what looks like a windfall tax in oil and gas companies, but again, the detail of it still has to be bashed out, and we're going to hear from him later this morning about that. As far as commodities are concerned, oil prices relatively slumbering, nothing really to move them right now, and gold is still battling against a stronger dollar. That's the global view this morning.
I wanted to touch on Apple, increasing their employee amount. I believe it's about $22 per hour. That's a 45% jump from 2018. And you said something about they wanted to keep the talent, or they want to keep the talent. But I don't even see any competition there. It's amazing that they're able to raise their pay to $22 per hour. That's about $176 per day. That's about how much a lot of competitive global business companies are making at this point, employees there.
Yeah, I think that I think they do want to hang on to their talents. I mean, this is the debate, isn't it? Whether you actually advertise outside and get new people in, and of course there will be in that part of the technical sector plenty of people looking for those kind of technical jobs. I mean, you're not just talking about salespeople. You're actually talking about people who want to get into the development of that, and so therefore it makes a lot of sense. The companies like Apple, and it's following on from Google and Microsoft and so on, and Alphabet generally, that they are keeping the talent, as it were, in-house and making sure that they stay there. In the end, it's a good long-term bet. My worry, as I was saying, is that the labour market is extremely tight, as we know, in the United States, and therefore any kind of increases tend to be inflationary. And of course, that's one thing that the Fed has just said, or said in its minutes yesterday, that it wants to guard against. So it's part of an inflationary package, I feel.
Well, let's start with Elon Musk. He's revising the financing plan, and as a result of that, Twitter shares have jumped up by about 6%. And that move, as revealed in the filings with SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission in the U.S., overshadowed the stakeholders meeting that the Twitter board held yesterday. And as Jack Dorsey leaves today, leaves the board, when would this drama end? Is Elon Musk likely to change his mind again, because he keeps changing his mind? At one point or the other, what are we likely to see, even if I understand that nobody can read his mind? And then, of course, the Sugri report came out yesterday. And during question time at the House of Commons, it was a big issue. Okay, report of the Prime Minister drinking fruit juice and holding on to snacks from Marks and Spencer, and all of that, and stories about vomiting, laughing at cleaners, and being disrespectful towards security persons. It looks like, yes, the Prime Minister may be damaged, but, you know, it's like Partygate is over. He's been able to get off the hook, likely. So is that it? Is that all? And now today we're told that the Chancellor is going to come with this cost of living crisis, package that they've been promising. And that is to be funded by the windfall tax that is going to bring about £7 billion. Now the electricity generators, they have been left off the hook, and they must be happy. But the head of offshore energies is saying that, look, this in the long run is going to affect the North Sea oil and gas companies, because, these are companies that plan ahead, and that, even the one-off windfall tax could be a disincentive for investments, and that, there could be consequences later. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I'll wait to see what Rishi Sunak actually says and how it is going to be funded. There's a lot of guesses about all this, and we are expecting a windfall tax, certainly on the oil and gas companies. As far as the distributors are concerned, I simply don't know. I mean, that was what we were hearing over the weekend. Maybe things have changed. I suspect that he's probably rewriting bits of it right now. But again, my worry about all this is that whilst these energy bills are huge, and there's absolutely no question about that, and food shortages too, whether this windfall tax is simply a bit of sticking plaster, or whether it's the kind of surgery that I always maintain is needed. Whether it looks long term enough, I'm not quite sure. As far as I would expect, this is exactly what I would expect the North Sea oil producers to be saying. It's the old argument about a windfall tax. It disincentivizes further future investment. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think people's minds have changed quite rapidly, as the boss of Aramco was saying, wasn't he, a couple of days ago? We don't hear a great deal about climate change these days. We're talking about energy shortages. It's amazing how people's perceptions of things actually move on. So I think I'd prefer to wait to see what actually happens about that. Elon Musk, I have no idea what he's thinking at the moment. I can only say that relief rally that happened after the bell last night was precisely because he said he was bringing other investors in and wasn't going to use his borrowed money, as it were, or margin call, whatever you care to call it, and so the bid looks a bit safer. As far as the Sue Gray report's concerned, again, it's a bit off my beaten track, this politics stuff, but it looks, from what I'm reading in the papers this morning, it looks like it was a bit of a damp squib, and whilst, one might not approve of what was going on, it looks as though Johnson has once again escaped.
Yeah, it's the grizzly pig. Moving on. Michael, I'd like to talk about three things. Number one will be about the state of the American economy. So where can the Fed find a balancing act? Because yes, they want to bump up interest rates to be able to fight inflation, but at the same time, it's affecting the markets. And with the new, the what do I call it, the hot potato job market, that, you have to pay a lot more for talent now in America, driving inflation, then it's like a triple whammy to the American economy. So how do they balance things out? Because the Fed was talking about recently bumping up more interest rates to be able to balance things out. Secondly, I'd like to talk about food, wheat. What do you think, apart from the great idea you put forward the other time that let's just have a corridor, probably get an aircraft carrier to be able to carry wheat out of Ukraine, which that might not be possible now. What do you think the wheat exchange can do in terms of like incentivizing other regions that produce wheat so that we can bump up production? So because when you check the chart, after Russia, after Ukraine, then you've got Canada that does about 2 million tons of wheat. Then you've got other countries on the pecking order. If we could probably ramp up production across those countries, then we can at least stabilize the market. I know wheat is quite cyclical. It has a cycle. There's a planting season to it. But how quick can the wheat exchange in Chicago incentivize that? And thirdly, I was proven right. Elon Musk was just about the hype. He doesn't know what he wants, really.